Good morning and welcome to another episode of PharSide Folios. We're celebrating a September to Remember with our series of special guest interviews with some amazing authors. And we are so excited to have with us today Miss Dorcas Pittman. She is first and foremost, she wants us to know that she is a lover of Christ. She is a wife of 11 years and a mother of two. She is a certified life coach and has her own Christian inspirational t-shirt line that's available on Etsy. She holds both a bachelor's and master's degrees and is the author of the book that we will be discussing on today, Breaking the Silence, Christianity and Mental Illness. Let's welcome Miss Dorcas Pittman.
Hello this morning. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to be talking about this topic on today. So we're just going to dive right in. There is such a stigma around mental health, especially in the Black community. What inspired you to share your story?
I know what it almost did to me. My battles with anxiety and depression almost ended with me ending my life. And so, because I was afraid or ashamed of telling people or expressing what was going on with me mentally, I almost killed myself. And so I didn't want anybody else to feel as if they're alone. And especially in the Black community, we don't talk about it enough. And in the Christian community, we don't talk about it enough. And so, somebody had to be the one to break the barriers. And, I'm not saying that I'm the first person to talk about it, but I am one of the people who I'm choosing to use my platform, however big it is, to tell my story and to tell people that it's okay to be a Christian, to deal with anxiety and depression. um, Black people, we deal with anxiety and depression, and you don't have to suffer in silence. And it's okay to stand in your truth. It's okay to speak your truth, and it's okay to be who you are. And so that is one thing that really encouraged me to tell my story about mental health, because I'm a firm believer is that God allows us to overcome tests to be a testament of it, to be a testimony. And so because He has carried me through so many different battles, I was like, I cannot be quiet and sit down and just say, okay, I did this. No one needs to know about it, because that's not why it happened. God needed me to be a testament to others that you can go through these things, but guess what? You can still come out victorious on the other side and still live a life of abundance. So that's why it was so important for me to tell my story.
So, like in the beginning, the introduction of your work, you talk about a three-step process that brought you into a place of healing. Can you define and describe those steps for those who are watching live, and then again, those who will catch it by replay?
Yes, acknowledgement is so key. Until a person acknowledges a thing, it doesn't exist. And so you have to, let's just like if you, any type of addiction, if the person does not acknowledge that they have this addiction, there's no help that you can give them. And so I had to acknowledge everything that happened to me. I had to acknowledge the people who did it, and I had to acknowledge how it affected me. And so I had to come to terms with that. As long as I kept it in my head and didn't talk about it, um, I couldn't address it. I had to give life to it in order to deal with it. And so that's what the acknowledgement piece is about. And then accepting it. You know, it's one thing to say, okay, well, I was sexually assaulted in college. But if I don't accept what it did to me mentally and physically and emotionally, then okay, I just got sexually assaulted. You have to accept the things that happen to you, accept the aftermaths of that trauma, because that is how you really identify what the action did to you. So you've acknowledged the action, you've accepted the consequence or the effect of that action, and that opens the door to God's healing. You know, my grandmother always said, closed mouth don't get fed. So you have to open your mouth and speak. Then you have to ask for the food, and then somebody will feed you, or
Mhm.
things of that nature. So I had to acknowledge, to myself, but say, even though God knows everything, like, God, this happened to me. These people did this to me. This is how it affected me. This is how it affected my relationship with you. Now, God, okay, what are we gonna do about it?
Mhm.
And so those were the key pieces in beginning my healing process, and that's why I put it at the forefront of the book, because nothing else can happen until you acknowledge it, you accept it, and then you that opens the door for God to do a work within you, because He understands. Okay, you are living in this. You are accepting these things. So okay, now I'm going to create in you something new and allow you to use your story to advance my kingdom. But the healing can't take place until you acknowledge and accept those things. And that's where a lot of people, especially in the Christian and Black community, no one wants to do that. They want to just keep quiet. They want to pretend that it didn't happen. And it's time out for that. That's where generational curses have been built on for years. Everybody pretending that it didn't happen. But it did happen, and because you're not
Mhm.
addressing it, it continues to happen. And I made a vow to God a long time ago. I was like, if I have to be the one to break generational curses, well, I'll be that sacrificial lamb, because my daughter and my son will not they will not be burdened by the generational curses that occurred generations ago and are still being carried on today. And so that is why those first three steps are very, very key in the healing process.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I just thought of this idea of where we can sometimes be stuck in the place of our pain.
Hmm.
And so in those places or areas where we find ourselves stuck, we need the strategies to get out of that place. So by giving us, your readers, that these steps of acknowledgement and then acceptance that will move you into a healing space, that gives us some ways to get out of that being stuck in our pain or being trapped with within our trauma. So we definitely appreciate you highlighting those steps for us. You include scripture in your work, and you talked about your faith in God, and how has that been a source of healing for you?
Well, my faith is everything to me, and in the at my lowest point, my mental illness caused spiritual illness. And
Mm-hmm.
so, even though I've been a woman of faith as far back as I can remember, I was very active in the church. But because I allowed so many things, because so many things went unaddressed, and because I'd gone through so much, when it got to this point, I felt like God had forsaken me, and I started to turn my back on Him. But you know, in the moment when I had my 9 millimeter in my hand, and it was like an out of body experience. I could literally see Satan pleading to God for my life. I had this glimpse of hope, and it was the foundation of my faith that allowed me to be in that moment and say, "Okay, this is my Hail Mary. God, if I'm doing this, and if they see it, it's meant for me to be here. If not, it is what it is." And that's why I say God saved me. And in that moment, when God saved me, I knew I had to fight for my life. And it was because of my foundation, and my love for Him. Even though all hell was breaking loose, mentally, physically, and even though I was sick, spiritually, but there was something there. That was my relationship with God that gave me that extra little, that little push to say, okay, I can't give up. This is bigger than me. And so when I checked myself into the mental hospital, it was it was a way. I say that was God's doing. That was God's alignment, because all of my distractions were gone, and I was able to really commune with Him. And so it was in that time where he gave me the title of my book, where he told me I had to tell my story. And and it was then I knew the magnitude of purpose I had on my life, because of the magnitude of the attack that the enemy was trying to conjure up. And so I had to stay grounded in my faith. And because I was addressing the depression and the anxiety, it gave me clarity
Mm-hmm.
to see things in the spirit realm, because I was so consumed with my flesh and how I felt mentally that I really couldn't think about anything spiritual, because like I said, I blamed God. I came close to cursing him. And so
Wow.
once I was able to get the treatment mentally,
Mm-hmm.
my oh my God, it was like my the spiritual lenses were cleansed, and I was able to see things not only in the physical, but even deeper in the spirit realm. And so even today, like, I'm not perfect, and I still have my struggles, but it's because of my faith in God. It is because of His Word, and that's why I put those scriptures in the book, because a lot of times I would say the church, they like to take scriptures and twist it to fit what they're trying to say. But we have to understand, as lovers of Christ, we have to take the God's word for what God's word is. We have to look at the whole word. We can't just take bits and pieces of it. And it's okay. God loves us unconditionally. And I told people, God said He will supply all of our needs. And if He didn't think we needed psychiatrists and therapists and all of those things, He wouldn't have aligned it, and He wouldn't have positioned it for it to be here on this earth. He said He would supply all of our needs. All the thing is, we have to come to Him. We have to acknowledge our needs. We have to accept that we need these things, so that God can position us and align us, so that we could get the help that we need. And if I hadn't gotten the mental help that I needed, I don't know where I would be spiritually right now. And so that is my faith is like, oh my God, my faith is so important to me, because I look at the first third well, I'm 35, and for
Mm-hmm.
33 years it was like I had this idea that I was here to just be in pain. And I still press for it. I still have faith in God. But it was at that darkest moment, when I was at the pits of that well, that deep dark well, um, that I almost lost faith. And I remember He said, all you need is the faith the size of a mustard seed. And He gave me a window of hope, the size of a mustard seed. And I had to make the choice. Either I was going to trust Him and just hold on to His hand, or just going to succumb to the physical effects of what I was going through.
As you talk about your faith, how does that, you know, and you talk about, getting support, from, mental health specialists, how does that, come together? Because, with the stigma in our community, we don't like asking for no help. That's something those other folks do. That's not something we don't go talk to nobody. We're not going to go to a life coach. We're not going to go for therapy, and we're definitely not going to take, medication. So, can you talk about, how you work through bringing, faith and bringing, that support, those outside supports together?
Oh, of course. And I know all of those stigmas. We sweep stuff under the rug. What goes on in this house stays in this house. We don't tell our problems to these strangers and things of that nature. And it was like, because I chose not to, I was the one who tripped over that mess of everything that was being swept under the rug. And so in a part of me, my healing process, I had to be very, very, very intentional. Um, I had to my I really had to ask God to increase my spirit of discernment, because everybody is not equipped, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody chooses not to be equipped to support you throughout your healing process. And there are people that I did talk to, like, oh, that's just pray about it. You can't. Yes, I pray, but what do I do um, when praying is not enough? And so I had to surround myself. And I'm not saying that I have a spiritual counselor, I have a therapist, I have
Mhm.
my psychiatrist, and I have my circle. And if you see my shirt, it says access to me is a privilege,
Mhm.
because so many people had access to me at that time when I was going through. I had all these different, everybody's opinions. And so I had to restrict that access. I had to restrict the access because even when I checked myself into the hospital, I can count I can count how many people knew I was there, because everyone, a lot of people chooses not to have the knowledge or obtain the knowledge to understand the physical side of mental illness. They
Mhm.
only look at it through their spiritual eye. Yes, the Bible said, God says do not be anxious for anything. He didn't say we wouldn't be anxious. He said do
Mhm.
not be anxious. But there's a B clause to that scripture, but you have to come to him if you are. And so a lot of times we get stuck on that. And so through my journey, I asked God to show me, okay, who can I trust with this? Because everybody's not good for your healing. Everybody is not good for your healing. And sometimes prayer is not enough when you feel as if God has forsaken you. And so I had to really, really, really be intentional. Yes, there are people I talked to. I said something one time, didn't say anything else to them because 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 of their reaction, because of what they
Mhm.
told me. So in that process, um, I had to really ask God for that discerning spirit so that I will know who's meant to go with me on this journey of healing, and who is equipped to help me along this journey of healing. And there are only a handful of people who were equipped to do that, because people say, "Well, I'm praying for you," and you don't know how. They don't know how to pray for you,
Mhm.
and so because their thoughts are so restricted, because they're so stuck in their ways, because they're stuck in, oh, you don't tell your business to the streets. You don't. Why are you telling people this? No one needs to know this. Their thought patterns are restricted. They're choosing to stay restricted because of, like I said, the generational curses. Just because it was done years and years and years doesn't mean it was right. And so that's the thing. I had to really limit the people who had access to me and who I allowed to speak life into me, who I allowed to pray for me. Because I needed you to know how to pray for me in that season. This is what I'm going through. This is how I'm feeling. Okay, this is how I need you to pray for me. Because right now, your girl doesn't have, I can't do it. I can't pray for myself. Because right now, I really don't. I mean, my daddy ain't looking like my daddy right now. He looking like somebody who just threw me to the wayside. And so that was one thing that I had to really be mindful of, because I knew the Black community, we don't talk about things. But like I said, when you continue to sweep things under the rug, somebody's going to trip over that mess. Somebody's going to trip over that mess, and whoever trips over it, they're going to have to deal with it
Mhm.
because they fail. So now they have to get up. They have to look back and figure out, how did I fall? If you fall, if you trip, if you're going through your house and you trip over something, what's the first thing you do? You look and see what you tripped over. So when you sweep all that stuff under the rug, remember, one day somebody's going to trip over it, and they're going to look back and say, okay, what caused me to fall? And when they see what caused them to fall, they're going to have to say, okay, how can I address this to keep from falling again, or to keep somebody else from falling? Because
Mhm.
if you see a branch in the road that messes up your tire, what you're going to do? You're going to get out, you're going to move that branch out the road so it doesn't mess up somebody else's tire. And so that's what we have to do. You have to be okay with being the odd person out. You have to be okay with being the one that say, I'm going to talk about this mess because it almost killed me. I'm tired of being concerned about how my story is going to make you feel, because it almost killed me, because we chose not to address these issues. And because we chose not to
Mhm.
address these issues, they're still happening. And it happened to me. And when it happened to me, it almost killed me because I failed. And somebody behind me, if I don't address this mess, and get all this mess from under this rug. Somebody behind me is going to fall, and they may not be strong enough to get up. They may end up killing themselves for real. And so I had to be okay with being the odd person out. I had to be okay with being the one to say, I'm going to speak my truth, and I don't care who doesn't like it. I don't care, because this is bigger than me. This is life or death. And if, like I said, if I have to be the one, I would do it over and over and over again, because this is the assignment that God has on my life. And I can't be concerned by what other people think or their views or how they feel I should act or what I should say. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yes, you did. You more than answered that question, because you highlighted the fact that we as a community do not have these conversations,
Mhm.
that we hide so much or keep so much in secret. And because we don't talk, that doesn't create safe spaces. It doesn't create opportunities for healing. It's just maintains stuff in a container. And at some point, there's going to be an explosion. The lid
Mhm.
is going to pop off. Something even greater is, of greater trauma could take place because we haven't addressed it in a
Mhm.
way that really brings resolution, that brings closure, that brings, all of those healing pieces. So here you are, where you've got a circle
Mhm.
of support with a team of, different specialists, and those that because of your discernment um can effectively support you. So
Mhm.
that's really, really key thing that you highlighted. So definitely we appreciate your speaking to that. And with your even with your title, Breaking the Silence, why do you feel that, we as a Christian community or a church have been silent about, issues of mental health, whether it's, the anxiety, the levels of, depression, suicide, and the rates, if you look at the data, the rates are becoming higher within the African American community. So why do you think we've been so silent?
A lot of people don't want to touch on the taboo subjects. They don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't like being uncomfortable. And I thank God that my bishop, he talks about it. And I mean, because you have to be open minded. This is not, you know, someone said you can't preach a 1968 sermon in 2021, because there's too many, it's different things going on. What was going on in 1968, it's not going on in 2021, and there are things that are going on in 2021 that didn't happen then. So they're afraid to move forward. They're afraid to step outside of what they know or what they've been taught. They don't want to look at the issues. They want to throw the Bible at everything. Yes, the Bible, God first, but you also have to understand that the world that we live in, and if your desire as a man or woman of God, as a pastor, bishop, anybody of the clergy, you have to be okay with addressing the issues that are uncomfortable, that have been uncomfortable to the church. There are so many people sitting in the pulpit, bishops, ministers who are suffering from anxiety and depression, but because of how it has been viewed all these years, they're afraid to speak up because of how it may make their other people outside of them uncomfortable. But that is not advancing the kingdom of God. I'm sorry. It's not. Because you have to address this stuff. Because you're not addressing it, people are suffering in silence. And because you're not addressing it, you're not letting them know that it is okay. It's okay to love God and still have issues. It's okay. But because God has put everything in place. You just have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's not church as usual. No, you have to it's the same word, but you have to present it differently. You can't preach to the 21-year-olds today like you did when you preached to me when I was 21, or my mom when she was 21. No, you can't do it. You're not going to reach them. You have to be able to align the word of God with real life, everyday issues. And one of those issues is mental health. And because the Black community has been shunned, nobody wanted to be called crazy. Anybody who had mental health, oh, they're the R word. They're
Mhm.
crazy. We know the R word I'm talking about. We didn't want to be
Mhm.
labeled as that, because that's anybody who had mental issues. That's what you were labeled as. So guess what? You're gonna just deal with it. You don't want to be called crazy. Yes, I was called crazy, but I was just a little girl who didn't know how to deal with this mess because we didn't talk about it. And honestly, a lot of them that don't know how to talk about it. Some people want to, they don't know how. And that's what we have to do. We have to normalize talking about things such as mental illness, Christianity and mental illness, being Black with mental illness, being white with mental illness. And we know the Caucasian community, they've been going to therapists for years because they understand. You have to seek knowledge. You have to understand these things. If you remain ignorant, then you remain ignorant. But we have a choice to make. God gives us a choice daily. Either you can choose to remain ignorant or you can choose to seek knowledge. Which one are you going to do? Because we can't accept the fact, well, I didn't know. No, you didn't know, because there are too many resources out here today for you to remain ignorant to what is going on around you. Now, in going and finding those resources, yes, you have to have that spirit of discernment, because there's a lot of mess out there. That's where your relationship with God comes in. So you have to, it's both. It's a twofold thing. And you have to be able to connect the two. And always God is going to be at the forefront, but we have to align the word of God so that the people can understand it, and relate it to what's going on in the world. And right now it is our mental health, especially on the backside of this pandemic. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, if your girl hadn't gotten help prior to this pandemic, I don't know where I would be, at home working with two kids.
Mhm.
And so this was 2019 that I started my healing journey. God knew that was I needed it. It needed it in that time because of what was coming. But if I had chosen to stay comfortable being a hot mess, I probably wouldn't have made it through 2020 with everything that happened.
Whew. Let- it's really, the issue of mental health is really a heavy topic.
Mhm.
It's something that should not be taken for granted or taken lightly. So, just as Ms. Pittman has said, for our viewers and those who will catch the replay, um, you couple your faith and your work together. And so that work is finding those support services that will contribute to your healing, whether it is through a life coach, whether it's a professional therapist or counselor, whether it's a psychiatrist, whether you seek your medical doctor, um, who's able to look whether to see if there's some things physically that are contributing factors as well. All of those things coupled together that put you in a greater space to walk through this journey towards your healing. One of the things, something else that you've done, is that you put in your book some questions for
Mhm.
thought and reflection, and put that space in for writing. So, what was the power of writing and the role of it in your healing journey?
Writing to me, it was very therapeutic because it's a way to get your thoughts out. It's a way, like I said, you had to acknowledge things. You can acknowledge things on paper. I mean, the doctor give you your test results sometimes on a sheet of paper that you're acknowledging it. And so there have been times where I've read books and I wanted to just write my notes, and you're trying to find a piece of paper or trying to write in the margins. Well, that was one thing that was one thing I had to do. He was like, no, you need to make journal pages, because when you're reading, that's when your thoughts are fresh. Oh, I'm not going to go
Mhm.
back and just write it. No, your thoughts are fresh. Jot down those notes. What are you feeling? And those reflective questions is things that I had to ask myself. I remember my cousin called me and she was like, you had me looking in the mirror at myself. She was like, I just left because she was like, I'm mad at you, got me looking in the mirror and I'm asking myself these things. And I was like, but that is you. You have to come face to face with those things and writing it, getting it out, getting it from here, whether it's speaking it verbally or non-verbally on paper. That was very therapeutic for me because it allowed me to get my thoughts out of my head, because I had so much going on that I needed to get it out. And yes, I wrote this book to help others heal, but I still go back and I read this because it is still a part of my
Mhm.
healing. I go back and read it and just say, God dang, look where I am today. I was a hot mess, a boiling hot mess. But guess what? You know, I may be a mess now, but I'm not as hot of a but But no, seriously. So that's why the journal pages are there, because writing is therapeutic for so many people. Writing was therapeutic for me. Writing is still therapeutic. It gives you the opportunity to write your notes fresh, to write your thoughts fresh, to write those things down. So when you go back and look at it 2 years from now, I'm like, dang, this is how I viewed myself. And you can compare, like, oh, this is me now, but that was me before. Look how far I've grown. Look at how far I've grown, how far I've come, how much work I've done, how much God has restored me. And you get a chance to just really, really meditate on those things. Meditate on where you are and meditate on where you want to be. Meditate on where you were and meditate on where you are now. Excuse me. So that's why it was so important for me to put those journal pages and those reflective questions. And again, some people don't know what questions to ask themselves. And so this is not every question that you can ask, but these were the ones that God told me to put. Because when I would try to force myself to write something, God shut it down. He shut
Mhm.
it down. Because it needed to come from him.
Mhm.
And so I only wrote when he told me to write and what he told me to write. When I tried to put my own thoughts in it, he shut it down. Things that I didn't want to put, he made me put. And so that's why I said, God, when they're reading this book, when they're reading the questions, when they're writing their answers, I want them to hear from you. Even though I wrote the book, this is my testimony, but these are also the words that you're speaking through me as well. This is the knowledge that I've gained by trusting you to break my silence while being a Christian, while being Black, while being a woman, while being a wife, while being a mom. Because yes, I had to check myself into the hospital with a 1 year old and a then 5 year old. First time being away from my kids like that, not knowing what I was going into.
Mhm.
And so this is why it was so important for me for those journal pages and those reflective questions to be in there, because it needs to be raw.
Mhm.
It needs to be real, because if you have too much time to think about something, you will convince yourself that it's something else. And so you have to be vulnerable, and you can be vulnerable on paper. This is yours. I know I tell a lot of people, you may not want to share this if you're trying to, you want to go on a healing journey, because you may not want everybody to see your notes. So that is why it's so important for you to just really um acknowledge those things through writing. And you can always go back and read it, because you forget stuff. You get older, you forget, man, what was I thinking back then? I don't know, but you wrote it.
So, what were some of the challenges you faced writing about your mental health journey, and how did you overcome that?
Oh my God. I faced a lot of individual challenges. Um, Basically, what people would think. All my life, I was caught up on making sure everybody thought of me a certain way or trying to prove that I was worthy. That those thoughts of, oh my God, me writing this thing, what is it gonna do? Whose feathers are they gonna ruffle? Man, once I put this out here, everybody's gonna know my business, and it was a struggle for me. And like I said, some stuff that I wanted to put, God said no because it wasn't in alignment with the assignment. And there were things that I didn't want to put like the molestation. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
the molestation to an extent, the sexual assault to an extent, and of course, I never use names because um, I thought about that, but somebody, I really had to really pray to God about that because
Mhm.
I didn't want to take away from the purpose, from the message. And
Mhm.
so that God was like, no, we're not putting in names because it'll take away from the purpose of the book. It'll take away from the healing because people would get so consumed by the who and not the what,
Mhm.
and the what and the healing. And so those were some challenges, and believing that I could write a book and publish and get it published and somebody would read it. Like, I'm an author, like literally. I write papers for college, but it's not about my life. So it was scary. It was scary and it was very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Whew, very uncomfortable. But I knew that God didn't allow me to go through all of that for nothing. And so, like I said, life is about choices. I had to choose whether to tell my story or to allow other people to continue to remain hurt. Not saying that I am directly but indirectly responsible for somebody else's healing. Because by me speaking my story, it could ignite the healing process. Somebody out there was waiting for my story to be written for them to start healing. If I had never written this book, their healing process either would have been delayed or never happened before. Your story, I read this quote, one day my story will be somebody else's survival guide. Yes, my story is somebody else's survival guide. I had to step outside of my comfortable zone of, okay, I'll tell my story, but when I want to tell my story. No, God wanted me to put my story in writing. So 20 years from now, 30 years from now, somebody can pick up this book and say, I needed this to catapult my healing process. I needed this. Thank God that in 2020, this book was released so that I can, no, 2021, so that I can heal in 2041. And so the challenge was really stepping outside of what I wanted and really be focused on what God wanted me to do. This was my assignment. Now he can do whatever he wants to do. He doesn't need me. But this was attached to my purpose. This was attached to my assignment. This was attached to why I was born. So I had to really think about the choice of whether or not to write it. And to be honest, the choice was, even though it was hard, it was easy because at the end of the day, my father brought me through this. I didn't do this. He gave me the strength. He aligned everything. There's no way I could have went through this healing process by myself. And so because I couldn't do it by myself, I have to position myself to help others, whether it is one-on-one, whether it's through them reading my book, whether it's through them following me on social media or watching this interview later on. So the challenge was being uncomfortable, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable with
Mhm.
telling my story and exposing it all. I mean, there was no mask, barefaced, fresh out the shower, like no, bare naked, like Adam and Eve was in the garden before they ate the fruit. Like all of me exposed, real raw, and That's what people need. They don't need sugar coated candy anymore. They need the truth. They need real problems. They need to know that real problems exist. They need to know that Christians still have real problems. They need to know that it's okay that I can still love God, be a Jesus groupie. I'm a Jesus groupie, but I tell you, any kind of day I'm having my day, it ain't so good, but I can come back from that. That is why it was so important for me to push past my agenda and get in alignment with God's agenda. Because God's agenda carries a whole lot more weight and a whole lot more impact than my agenda could ever do or would ever do. And that was my choice. And I'll go back and I'll do it all over again. If I had to go back in my mother's womb and I had the choice to live the life that I've lived or a totally different life, I would choose this life. Why? Because this is why God created me in the first place. To live this life, to tell this story, to help the people that have been assigned to my voice. Just like I was assigned to some people have been assigned to my voice. And if I remain silent, if I had remained silent, I would have passed that test. That assignment would have been turned in. It would have been a straight zero. Like, you do not get promoted to the next level. You're gonna stay right here. No, no.
Well, we are thankful that you have, look, put done more than put your name on the paper. That you've done the assignment, and
Oh,
as a result of doing that assignment, there are people who are going to, watch this interview. There are people that are going to go and pick up your book, that are going to find some needed strategies. There are people who are going to, connect with you, even for your coaching services as a result of your testimony. So, so we're thankful that, you heeded the voice of God to to talk about this subject,
yes.
because it's, again, when we're talking about issues of mental health, there is such a stigma that we refuse to talk or refuse to acknowledge, or it's something that's not, we don't address. We don't do that over here. This is not how we handle things. This is not how things are done. And as a result, so many people suffer spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically as a result of all of these unresolved issues and concerns being addressed. So it's definitely a timely work. It's a relevant work. It's a
It's a lot of
powerful
work.
work, and it is a tool. So I can
Mhm.
see this being, definitely seeing this being a ministry tool for, small groups, or, for the, church community as whole, like doing something in small groups for a teaching series, or something of that nature, to, even to make an impact when we're to have that discussion, to have these discussions, or start these discussions in our faith communities about mental health. So it's so important that you put this book and this story out there. So, what is something that, for those who are dealing with mental health challenges, or those who, who may be caregivers, you
Mhm.
know, of with persons who have, issues with their mental health, what are some, two or three recommendations that you could provide to our audience and those who may be watching by replay?
One thing, you have to provide a safe place to talk. You have to they have to feel safe. And I didn't feel safe. I felt safe with my therapist because I know
Mhm.
she was not judgmental, and she allowed me to be me. And there are people in my circle that I also feel safe with. So if it's the person who's dealing with mental health issues, okay, just go get help. Don't be ashamed to go get help. You don't have to tell everybody you're going to get help. You don't have to, but you have to make that first step to go get help. And if you're a caregiver, you have to open that line of communication. You have to ensure that there's a safe place, a safe space for that person. Because if someone doesn't feel safe, they're not going to open up. I didn't feel safe opening up to a lot of people. So I had to figure out who I was safe with, who would I could just pour out my heart and everything that was going on, and I would be safe with them. And so creating that safe place in an open line of communication. And you cannot allow an inkling of judgment to be heard in your voice or
Mhm.
seen on your face. Because even if that is seen or heard, you're gonna shut down.
Mhm.
So you have to put your thoughts and your ideas and your word and all the stuff that you want to say out the window and just listen. God gave us two ears, one mouth. We have to listen more than we speak. When you create that safe place, or when you find that safe place, pour your heart out to whoever you're talking to. And if the person is talking to you, open your ears as wide as you can. Close your eyes and just listen. Just listen. And because of your listening and your non judgment, I promise you, you are opening up a place for them to feel more comfortable with putting it out there. And when the time comes, okay, would you like to go get help? What can I do to help you? And that is very important for the caregiver or the husband, the wife, the son, the daughter. What can I do to help you? Not what I'm gonna do to help you. Ask them, what can I do to help you? What do you need from me to help you? Because you're acknowledging their need, you're acknowledging them, and you're acknowledging what they're dealing with and their struggles. And it's very, 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 very important for that person. Because even though my husband, he didn't understand it. And it took him a while to understand it. It took him a while to really come to terms to of what I was dealing with. But I will say this: he tried to research it. He didn't.
Mhm.
He didn't just come and continue to choose to be ignorant. No, he tried to research it. He tried to become educated about it. If you see where someone is always just sad and down and moping, or you always see them shaking or anxious, okay, learn. Knowledge is power. When you have knowledge of a situation, when you understand how it works, it's all about seeking that help, whether it's a doctor or trying to be more informed of we say Dr. Google, stay away from Dr. Google, but sometimes Dr. Google can help you align different behaviors and kind of point you in a direction of where you may need to go. I went to my primary care physician. She gave me the anxiety medicine, but I needed more
Mhm.
when the postpartum depression became too unbearable. And I checked myself into the hospital, not knowing they were putting me in jail, because it's like a jail, and I was scared. But it was the best decision ever. So really be attentive. Take care of the needs of the person you are helping, and take care of your needs if you're the person. If you're in need of um, some clarity, talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor. You know who you can trust. You know who you can trust. And if you don't have anyone in your life that you can trust, okay, go to your doctor. There are so many different programs out there. If you're in the process of, if you're having suicidal thoughts, like, I didn't tell everybody that, but I told somebody. And when it got to the point where I was afraid to get out of my bed because I thought I was going to hurt myself, that's a problem. That's a problem. You have to be okay with not being okay. Because in being okay with not being okay, you open the door to get into a place where you are okay. You are standing in your truth at that moment. I am depressed. I am anxious. Lord God, I think you have forsaken me. I don't know if I'm coming or going. I cannot function. I cannot get out of bed. I cannot do all of these things. Something is wrong. This is not me. This is not who I want to be. I need help. Cry out for help. Breaking your silence is the key to it all, whether you're Christian, whether you're non-Christian, no matter what your background is, what your faith affiliation is, no matter what color you are, no matter your gender, no matter what. If you don't open your mouth and speak and ask for help and allow your needs to be known, there's no way. People say, well, I don't understand why that mom committed suicide. Can I tell you something? At that point, my 2 kids weren't enough to keep me here. The 2 kids that I prayed for, they weren't enough. In that moment, I felt they were better off without me because I was so sick. That is how that mom did it. And she didn't feel comfortable and she didn't feel safe enough to be able to express how she was feeling because they're saying moms are supposed to deal with it. Women are just supposed to deal with it. We're just supposed to deal with it, suck it up, and keep going. No, we cannot. That's why we're dying. That's why we're committing suicide at an alarming rate. Because we've been conditioned and taught to just deal with it. You don't have to just deal with it. You have to address it. No. Oh, well, that's just how they are. No. They may not want to be that way and they don't know how to talk to you about it. But because you keep saying, oh, that's just the way they are, they feel as if you have accepted it and you don't care that they're jacked up, that they're moping around every day, that they're afraid to leave the house. We have to make it a safe. We have to make it normal. We have to normalize talking about our mental health issues. We have to make it normal talking about our emotions. We have to make it normal. I acknowledge my children's feelings. I acknowledge their feelings. I talk to them about what they're feeling and how this made them feel. We have to talk about these things. And that's where it starts. That's where we have to take the muzzle off. And if you have a mask on with the mouth closed, take the mask off because a lot of us are hiding behind that mask. Several of them have been glued together. But we have to make it normal. We have to normalize talking about things. We have to normalize it in the church. We have to set resources.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make resources available in the church. If the resources aren't available in the church, of course they're gonna think, well, that's not of God. They don't talk about it in the church. Okay. Instead of hiring another person to clean the grounds, hire somebody. Hire a licensed counselor to be there in that church. Someone who's licensed in this area. Because every preacher is not licensed to handle mental illness. So you have to make the resources available. And by making those resources available, you are bringing attention and saying, okay, this is a problem that exists. We're going to help you. We're going to provide you with resources so that you can get help. Make it available. And by doing that, you're saying it's okay. There's no judgment here. No judgment here inside this church. We are making it easy for you to get the help that you need. And guess what? Because they're licensed, they're bound by doctor-patient confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
They can't. It ain't Sister Jenkins that can go, girl, you know what she came and told me.
Mm-hmm.
Sister Jenkins can't hold water. And so, so yes, support and making it us keep making it normalize being normalize talking about it and creating that safe place and providing the tools needed for um, people to get help and for someone else to help other people.
Now, having written this book and gone through this healing journey and, still, healing, what is something that you see for yourself now that you may not have seen before as a result of what you were going through or dealing with in your mental health?
Hope. um, I'm lighter. I'm so much lighter. I look at myself differently because I still have my days. I still have my moments of insecurity, but guess what? It's okay. But there's so much hope. I have more. I have more confidence in myself. I'm okay with being me. I'm okay with not apologizing for being me. Um, I don't take on other people's problems like I used to and put myself um, in the back burner, on the back burner. I see me caring for myself. I see me loving on myself. I see me always speaking good of myself, which is something I didn't do a lot of. I always spoke, oh, you're just dumb, you're stupid, no one cares about you. You're the reason they hurt you, you're the reason this. No, I'm worthy. I have so much worth now. And because I know how much I'm worth, I know how the magnitude of my future. Um, but more importantly, I see hope. Um, I see life in my eyes. Um, and I don't have to worry about my mask falling off because there's no mask. I had several. They were glued together. And I had to break those. I had to chisel them apart. God was like chiseling them apart. Instead of the onion, he was chiseling those masks apart. I don't have to wear a mask. And my future is my future, it's cliche, my future is bright, but my future is bright because I have chosen to allow God to use me however he needs to use me. Instead of being worried about what other people are going to think, if I allow God to use me in that way. Not being concerned about man.
Well, this has been a powerful conversation, a needed conversation. Um,
I pushed through with my voice.
a needed conversation. So we're thankful that you took the time to be with us on this morning. How can our viewers and those who will watch by replay um, catch you, follow you, or connect with
um, you can catch me on Facebook. My darkness the number two hope LLC. You can catch me on Instagram darkness underscore two underscore hope. Um, if you want to purchase the book, is available on Amazon. However, if you want a copy that is signed by me, you can go to my website, and that's www.fromdarkness the number two hope.com. Um, you can, if you're in Clubhouse, you can catch me talking in my club, the Whole Woman Club, or on in several other platforms on Clubhouse. And if you want to connect individually, you can send me an email at info@fromdarknesstohope.com. I will be launching I will be opening up my calendar to start taking appointments soon for one-on-one coaching. And so just feel free to send me an email, message me on any of my social media platforms if you want to connect in any way. I am very open. I love helping people become the best version of themselves. Um, and one way is healing and being who you are in Christ Jesus, and not apologizing for what you love, not apologizing for yourself and who you are, who God has created you to be. So hopefully, I will be able to connect with so many of you, um, going forward, and also, as like I said, for this shirt, access to me is a privilege. That was one thing that helped me establish boundaries in my healing. And I told people, if too many people have access to you, you're open to all kind of things, all types of things. So you should treat yourself as a vault. And only certain people should have the keys to access to you. And if you would love this shirt, you can go to my Etsy shop, Darkness to Hope. Um, this, as well as so many other inspirational and Christian shirts, are on my Etsy shop. From Boundaries, I have one that says Jesus groupie, because I told you I was a Jesus groupie, and so, but yes, limit the access that people have to you. Set your boundaries and just talk about it. We're taking the muzzles off. We're normalizing, um, speaking our truth and living in our truth and being unapologetically who we are, because we are fabulous and we are all that in a bag of chips, and don't be ashamed of it, because God made you in his image and he is all that in a bag of chips. So, I am so thankful to you, Monica, my soror, for having me on this interview, and I praise that God just get me through with. I've been sick under the weather all week, but I got my tea and I got everything. And I said, God, if I can do it for anybody, I can do it for you, because someone needs to hear my voice this morning. And so I'm here, and I really, really love, and really humbled and honored that you gave me the opportunity to share this platform with you. And I look
Well,
forward to many collaborations in the future.
Well, thank you, Dorcas Pittman, for spending this time with us this morning on the far side, at PharSide Folios. We wish you continued success
Thank
with breaking
you.
the silence, Christianity, and mental illness. So we want you to come back again with your other projects.
Yes,
If you
more
have
books are coming.
anything rolling out, just keep us in the loop. We like to
I
support
will.
and encourage our authors that we've had come on. So for those who are watching live, those who will come and catch the replay, make sure you're staying tuned to the PharSide Coed Book Club Facebook page for more author interviews and posts, as we are giving you a September to remember. And the month is not over yet. So we definitely have some more in store for you. So until next time, many roots, many voices are a part of the infinite story. So plant your seed. Have a great and wonderful day.
Bye bye.